Ladies and gentlemen, I am Yusril, the game is World of Warships, and this is the Kawachi class, the Japanese Tier 3 battleship, and along with the American South Carolina, one of the two main contenders for worst ship in the game. The Kawachis were Japan's first dreadnoughts. Two were built, the Kawachi herself and her sister ship the Setsu, and much like all the other early dreadnoughts, by the time war actually broke out, she was a bit behind the times. She did better than the South Carolina though, she actually saw major action. Once. Both the Kawachi and the Setsu were present at the Battle of Tsingtao in October and November of 1914, where they assisted with the bombardment of the German fortifications there. And that was pretty much it. The Kawachi would be sunk in July 1918 by an accidental detonation in one of her magazines, breaking the ship and killing 600 of her crew. The Setsu, well, she had a longer career, although it wasn't necessarily a more glorious one. She was refitted, and in fact her refit is the B-type hull that we have available here, removing some of the secondary guns and adding some token anti-air armament. Once that was done, she was serving as the flagship for the Emperor Taisho in 1918 and 19 during the naval reviews, which was basically a ceremonial role, and in 1919 she was placed in reserve and overhauled again. In 1922, after a bit of horse trading over the Washington Naval Treaty, she was disarmed and struck from the Navy list on the 1st of October 1923. The original bargain had been that the Japanese Navy would get to keep the Setsu, but would have to disarm the more advanced and more dangerous Nagato-class Mutsu. The Japanese said nope, and disarmed the Setsu instead. In 1924 she was converted into a target vessel and up-armoured, and that's how she'd spend most of the next 13 or 14 years. In 1937 she did have a brief period back on active service. She transported a battalion of naval troops to the Shanghai area at the start of the Second Sino-Japanese War. And in 1941, at the beginning of the Pacific War, she found herself operating in a Funkspiel operation, simulating the radio traffic of 8 Japanese carriers in an effort to deceive Allied signals intelligence. How much that contributed to Pearl Harbor remains unclear, but, well, we all know how Pearl Harbor went down. And that was pretty much it. She spent most of the rest of the war as target practice for carrier pilots until July 1945, when an Allied air raid on the IJM base at Kure holed her so badly that her crew were forced to beach her in order to prevent her sinking. The hull would later be broken up for scrap over the course of 1946 and 1947, so depending on how you count it, you can argue that the Setsu was the only Japanese battleship, and indeed one of the few battleships full stop, to get through both the First and the Second World Wars, a total career span of some 34 years, from completion to final scrapping. Of course, most of that was spent as either a target dummy or a troop transport, so it's open to interpretation. In-game, however, this ship is, well, it's dubious to say the least. Baseline propulsion, 22,500 horsepower, top speed 18.7 knots. She's faster than the South Carolina, I will give her that. However, her top speed is only 20.4 knots, so most US cruisers with their rated speed of 21 knots can outrun her, ditto the Tier 4 and Tier 5 battleships, the Wyoming and the New York. Don't even ask about the Japanese battleships, it's absolutely hilarious. This wouldn't be an issue if it wasn't for her fire control, which is a total dog. 8.9 kilometers, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my god. Okay, so let's sum this up, shall we? The detectability is 9.5 kilometers, but her fire control range is less than that, although with the upgrades it goes up to 9.8, so it's a marginal situation. However, chances are that anything that can see a Kawachi, either because she has fired or because she is within that 9.5 kilometer range, has probably got the range to hit her. and is probably fast enough to hold the range open and can stay in that lovely little, oh, what is it, 600 meter band where they can hit the Kawachi and the Kawachi can't hit them. Bit of a problem. You can of course go to the Mod 2 fire control system, but that requires you to upgrade to the B hull, the mid-era late World War I Setsu refit. So we'll just research that, blow some free XP, and then quickly fit the upgrade, because Lord knows it was painful enough on the A hull. So it's 8,500 to the Miyogi, which is a much better ship, even if she is much less stealthy, and 1,200 to the Type 3 Mod 2 to finally get a reasonable striking range. As for the guns, well, they're 305mm guns. Weight of metal's a bit better than the South Carolina, especially with the high explosive. In fact, it's solidly better, 20% more. However, 1.8 rounds per minute, the South Carolina has the edge in terms of rate. And don't even start talking about a St. Louis. Essentially, the only way a Kawachi is even going to get to fire a shot is if she can use her stealth to sneak up on an enemy and catch them unawares, or if the enemy gets clumsy and blunders into range. And since there are Wyomings on this battlefield, it could get very, very interesting indeed. However, we do have an advantage in the air. Our carrier is a tier 5 compared to the tier 4 Langley. Wyoming, Miyogi, Wyoming, Kawachi, Furutaka, Kumas. Yeah, this is actually a fairly even battle. 2 Kawachis aside, we might be able to get a decent slugfest out of this thing. So as always with a battleship, load armor piercing to start with, set all ahead full, timer ticks down to 0, and off we go. Get some steerage way in, left or right. The key question for all the battleships. The basic theory goes that any division of the line of battle, particularly with the heavies, is a mistake. So we'll start by going right, so guns round to port. Much like the South Carolina, I've got 8 guns on the broadside. If I judge it right, I can potentially get 6 fore and aft. That's one of the nice things about the wing turret design, but the downer, well, it's not really an issue in World of Warships, because having that much mass out on the wings of the ship didn't do anything to help seakeeping. However, it's not an issue for the moment. Control X just to lock the turrets into place so I don't have to hold down my right mouse button, and we can look around and see what the rest of the fleet's doing. Double line astern by the looks of it. We've got a Wyoming backing us up, although he will start to overhaul us if he's got the uprated engines. He can make 21.2. Of course, I can only make 20.4. Aircraft are in the air, and it's straight ground attack. Oh god. Well, if we're lucky, the enemy haven't got too many fighters. Actually, who am I kidding? It's a Langley. I know his air complement. 1 squadron fighters, 1 squadron torpedo bombers. So glad I invested in that extra AAA. It's token effort more than anything, but just steer carefully to avoid the Furutaka. There we go. And then gentle haul into place. Here come the aircraft. So, first one at 12 kilometers, 11 kilometers. Now, the tail gunners on those bombers, if they group up, can put a dent in the fighters. They can give some definite nasty surprises to an incautious fighter squadron, but they're declining battle and legging it for the flak. Sensible guys. However, it may not be enough to save them. In come the fighters. There are the enemy torpedo bombs. We've got the first exchanges between our destroyers, and we're still waiting for the action. Still trying to get there. 11.8, 11.7. No sign of enemy cruisers or battleships as yet, so let's load high explosive. I've got the expert gunner skill, so I have got the 20-second switch rather than the 30-second on my rounds. And we'll just come a few points to port. See if we can work the range down a bit. That Clemson is in range, but I don't have line of sight. The Isakaze is firmly out of range, and no line of sight to him either, mostly thanks to the smoke. Okay, those torpedoes are a solid miss. That I don't need to worry about. And we've got some flak coming off as well as the enemy fighters go overhead. Still no serious contacts. We're knocking a few holes in the American biplanes, but that's not an issue. Destroyers still refusing to engage. In fact, you know what? Let's unlock the turrets, bring them round, because if I'm very lucky, we're at extreme range, but we have a contact. No, we don't, because he's heading away. Fine. Reacquire. Lay on to that Wix class. Still got high X in the breach, so maybe we can get a couple of shots into this Wix. Main battery hits against destroyers are never a solid gamble, but hey, you never know. Number 3 turrets come round and fire. Rounds out. Line's good, range good. Range very bad, in fact. Number 1 turret. Wait for him to come into his turn. Lay on. Fire. Double incapacitation, but no hits. Little bit to starboard. Get the number 2 turret into play. Wait for it. Wait for it. Come on, you little sod traverse. There we go. Fire. 2 clean misses again. Secondary batteries are coming into play. Number 4 turret should be loaded. Doesn't matter, the Wix has gone down. Now the question is, did he get torpedoes off? More to the point, I need to switch back to armor piercing. Somehow incapacitated twice without actually scoring direct hits. That's what a water-bursting shell can do for you. Next problem, this Kuma... never mind, he's dead. Solves that one. So, Kawachi versus Kawachi. Although we do have a Tenryu backing us up. In fact, I think he's going to do most of the actual killing. So, come round this. Range is still bad, but we have got the line. Come gently to port. Number 5 turret still just about has the shot. Headland's blocking the way, although it won't be for long. Wait for it. Check the line. Check displacement. 5 mils off. We'll do it. Rounds out. Line good. Elevation good. 3 decent hits. 6,000 damage. Start reloading. Little bit to starboard. Number 5 turret didn't quite have an angle there. We'll have a bearing again shortly. I'll wait for the next broadside to come up. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7. Recheck firing solution. Reset range. 6.7. 6.6. Guns up. Line is good. Target is good. Fire. And target well, not really well struck. Shell scatter was a bit of a pig on there. And again, we're waiting for the next barrage. So get the credit for the base capture by accident. Shells are just about coming up, but those torpedoes are probably going to finish the Kawachi first. No, they aren't, and he's killed the Tenryu. Got a bit too close to get those torpedoes off, and Sidious managed to maneuver through the salvo. However, I am still broadside on. Lay on again. Adjust. Broadside. Several decent hits. And another couple of thousand damage. Start turning, get quarter on. I really don't want to ram this guy. In fact, I'm going to come hard port because my starboard turrets, of course, are still loaded. I'm trading a bit of firepower. It's going to take a long time to get the number 6 turret round. And it doesn't matter because I think Bordser must have got a lucky strike. Oh, it's a Wyoming, of course. He had all 10 of his guns on. Still, 6 decent hits, although I'd swear I got more. And we're in position now to regroup with the rest of the fleet and begin pushing up. And there goes the salt. Delicious, delicious tears. He has a point though, most of their fleet is actually down at sea. And at this rate it's going to take a long while to get back into the fight. Remember, 20 knots. This ship is not fast. So, let's just settle back and wait. Has anyone got some smooth jazz? Cup of tea, anybody? No? No? Okay, fine. Suit yourself. Nothing like a lovely cup of tea when you're waiting for the enemy to get themselves in range. How are we doing anyway? 3 battleships and a cruiser and a carrier versus our 3 battleships, 2 cruisers and a carrier. We have got a slight edge, all the light ships are out of it. Time for some more smooth jazz, I think, although that Kawachi is just coming into range. So as before, turn to starboard, get the number 5 turret round to bear. Just about got the range. Numbers 1, 2 and 4 turrets fine. Number 5 turret coming up. Lay on, set range for 8 kilometers and fire! May have overestimated my lead a touch, but 3 decent hits. Okay, just keep turning. The real problem is essentially keeping the number 5 turret on target, and the fact that I've got 2 Wyomings looking at me as well. Wait for the reload. Not moving particularly fast, so we'll set for 2.5 mils on. Broadside. Come on, have it. And 5 decent hits there. And I think we're going to be able to just clobber this guy to death over the course of the next broadside or 2. Disconnect the guns just for a second. Yep, there we go. Furutaka is matching us, although we have to be careful at this point not to run aground. I'm actually going to... Oh my god. All stop, hard reverse. Now hard forward. We've shed just enough velocity to dodge both those torpedoes. Fine. Lay on to that Wyoming. He is actually out of range at this point. Just... Well, we'll chance it. Shell scatter might be enough to get us a couple of hits, and in fact it did. 1 decent hit. We'll also have to endure this fire for a bit. That carrier. Those guns. This is going to be a significant problem. I have to somehow get back into range, which means turning round for the moment. That Furutaka is chasing down our carrier, which is also a problem, and the enemy have got a significant advantage in both range and weight. So at this stage, what can I do that's useful? I can start by pulling out my repair parties and starting to heal up. Now this is going to be problematic. The Wyomings have got both the range and the speed to knock Wolfsmond 87 and myself out of commission, and they can do that quite effectively. The only option we have is to somehow force them to close the distance, and with that much open ocean at their backs, it's not going to happen. So, plan B instead. We know the enemy carriers are looking somewhere, so we're going to have to bait him out. We also have a 260 point advantage going into this. So, how to do this? Okay. Break away from the Wyomings. They outrun and outrange us. We need them in the islands, or they'll just hold the range open and knock us to pieces. In the meantime, however, we also have a decent bearing on that carrier. Okay, Tiny CZ got his shot in. LSD. Grab for C. So we put LSD and the Furutaka over to C. And once I've murdered their carrier, we should be in a good position to just hold this down on points. However, it does rely on the other battleships being able to stay away. We have got a Wyoming. Unfortunately, I'm in a Kawachi and Wolfsmond is in a Kawachi as well. We're going to have to group up. We can't take 2 Wyomings if they're tightly coordinated like that. And I'm steaming way off the objectives anyway, going carrier hunting, which is not necessarily a wise thing to do, given that the Japanese carriers even... Well, it's a Langley. I tell a lie, he can't outrun me. If that had been a Hosho, I wouldn't even be daring to try this. They make 25 knots, which is problematic at best. Now, those torp bombers are probably going to spot me. Maybe. Maybe not. However, their return course does give them away. This is going to be tricky. They are down to just the one battleship. I wasn't paying attention to that. So, this is what it comes down to. One Langley, one Wyoming. Okay, the Wyoming and the Kawachi together can take that guy. That's not a problem. The real problem is going to be if Wolfsmond can't get the range open. We shall see. Meantime, let's hunt this carrier. High explosive into the breach. Also, patch up the next bit of damage, because Lord knows we're about to have some torpedo bombers coming our way. Now, where's this carrier got to? Usually at this point, I'd be expecting him to have legged it along to sea and be trying to stay behind the fleet. So typically a hiding point would be, well, around about sea. Damn it, we lost the sea. Fortunately, that was the St. Louis, so there are warships we could have lost there. We've still got the Furutaka, we've still got the Wyoming, and I still haven't found this carrier. More tea, anybody? Come on, where are you? Where are those torpedo bombers? Bingo, there we are. Outgoing, looks like they were tracking from somewhere in the region of I-8 or I-9, which means we should be picking him up in the next couple of minutes. Come on. Come on. Gonna get me some carrier booty. Where are you? Where are you? You're around here somewhere, I know it. I will probably get sight of him before he gets sight of me. I've got a slightly better detection rating than he has. The only real giveaway we've got with this carrier at the moment is what his torpedo bombers do. In particular, what they do once they've dumped their torpedoes and they start their return flight. Because just for a second, they will come onto a direct course to home. And yep, that looks like it. That's their return course. Yeah, he is. More likely he's on H. H9, I would say, if I was in his position. Not that it really matters, because the round has just ended. Yeah. And that, by the way, is a good run in a Kawachi. 15 hits, 2 incapacitations, somehow, and a base capture. 605 experience. In any other ship, I'd be calling that an utter disgrace of a run, but you know what? Let's see if I can do better. Battle on! I'm gonna get me that enhanced fire control if it kills me. Which, given that this is a Kawachi, it probably will. So, what do we got this time? Oh god, they've got the air advantage this time. They've got the Bogue, we've got the Langley. They've got 2 New Yorks, a Congo, a Wyoming. This hurts already. Oh my god. Well, I suppose I have another 6 seconds to compose a death haiku. What are the rules for haiku anyway? Excuse me a second. Where did I put... Ah, there it is. Switch to armor piercing. Search. Haiku structure. I haven't had to write poetry in 20 years since I was at secondary school and doing English. Rules for writing haiku. The structure is always the same. 3 lines, 17 syllables throughout, 5, 7, 5. Oh dear. Poetry. Let me see. Kawachi outranged. That's 5 syllables for the first line. What to do for the second line? 7 syllables. Much enemy fire comes here. Kawachi will die wet. I need something better for that final line. Submissions in the YouTube comments, please. Death haikus for the Kawachi, because let's face it, we're going to use plenty of them. Let me think. Kawachi, well, that's 3 syllables. Outranged. Kawachi too slow. Enemy have range. Enemy have range. Ranged us. Shells are incoming. Yep, that'll do as well. Let me think. Can I come up with better? Well, freeze the guns for a second because I don't want the turrets coming off the most likely arc. Does anyone else have better? Well, there's the Omaha. There's our first contact. Looks like we're going to see a midfield collision. Fleets all over the place. Which is a bad thing when you remember how slow this ship is. It's going to take me a long time to hook back up with that pair of Tenryus. Then again, I might be able to manage it. If they turn that into a grinder fight and loop back, that will buy me the time I need to swing around the island and get guns onto that Omaha. There's also something, probably that battleship in H2, that's opened fire as well, taking the spots off the Omaha. However, still 11 kilometers involved. Still got to close another 3,000 meters or so before I can get range. And even then, the Omaha's on the far side of an island. Chances are it'll be dead by the time I engage, because that is about to turn into the Tenryu's favourite sport, knife fights with torpedoes. In fact, as we come round, we're going to see that Monarch's Hex is going to blitz around the corner, probably launch, if he can live long enough, because that Omaha is also going to dump its tubes. In fact, I would have dumped them preemptively. And yeah, I think I saw a launch there, but that may have been splashes from shellfire. Doesn't really matter though, because he's just been caught in a really nasty crossfire, and there endeth the first Tenryu. New York Clark's battleship up ahead. We can probably use the terrain to come up on him. And in fact, we have now got range on that Omaha. So we're going to get one shot as he comes round. No, we aren't, because he's just reverse course. Okay. Annoying. The St. Louis is out of range. maybe, just maybe, we're going to get a shot as he breaks round this headland, but it's going to be a tricky one, because he's going to be turning away to pursue. Then again, maybe he isn't. Right then, okay. Let's see what happens. Shell scatter might be enough. Line's good, range is good. Bingo! And a citadel hit. Okay, so we got a little bit of vengeance in, and so far, the only kill on our side of the battle. How on earth is it that we've lost 4 ships, but they're only credited for 3? For that matter, how on earth is it that the enemy have killed 4, lost 2, and we're only credited for 1? Fair enough, I'm not arguing. This is going to hurt very badly. There are 2 New Yorks over there, and the St. Louis is getting some action in as well. Luckily, the armour can soak most of what he's producing at this range. So, gentle to port at this stage. The guns are still round. Yeah, we should... He's... No, it was just some packet loss. Give me a second. 7 mils offset. All day. Range on. Not great. Primary turrets were off and the range was off as well, so I'm going to take a bit of a risk here. Turn to starboard. I'm risking collision here, but if I can get the turrets round, which I can't, fine. At this point, I have an extremely limited set of options. If I carry on as I'm going, then that New York is going to come around this headland and pound me into several kinds of paste. However, I need to get the guns round anyway, because this St. Louis is going to clear the headland in about another, 15 seconds, give or take. Number 5 turret probably won't be quite ready, but that's not the point. Sorry, number 6 turret. Numbers 1, 3, and 5 are absolutely ready. Oh god, I'm about to come to a full stop right in front of his guns. And some days you luck out. Those torpedoes would have been bad. St. Louis has stopped, however he's now run out in front of my broadside, and boomski. Load high X. Start getting damage control and repair parties onto those fires. New York's taking some easy shots while I'm distracted. The St. Louis is displaying that annoying armour tendency, and I'm about to eat rather a lot of torpedoes as well. Stopping like that only saved me once. Hard reverse, hard reverse, hard reverse. Come on, is that high X loaded yet? Just about. Turrets are coming up. Loaded, aimed, fire! And we just rearranged a significant chunk of the landscape. Come on, full reverse. That destroyer is likely gearing up for another salvo. I've got a Congo that's lining up as well. Here come another round of torpedoes, and that's the end of that. Well, that was an utter shambles. And to be frank, there wasn't a lot I could have done. Every choice I made there was basically deadly. If I'd gone right through the headland, I'd have been in the crossfire of a New York, a St. Louis, the carrier once it rearmed, and yeah, generally that would have been bad. If I stay where I was, well, you saw what happened there. An unseen destroyer took the advantage of some torpedo practice, and if I'd gone left, I'd just been out of the battle, and the Congo would have started shooting me up from a safe distance. Again, nothing I could have done. I was basically doomed in that situation. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the sad fate of the Kawachi. Yeah. We got exactly 2 hits, but one of them did sink a cruiser, so technically it's a 1-to-1 on the KD ratios. Oh my god. The less said about this battle, the better, I think. I have a feeling I'm just going to go back to my Wyoming and free XP my way through the rest of the Kawachi. And to be perfectly frank, I'd recommend you do the same. Until next time, farewell.